Ann Coulter went on Laura Ingraham's show on Fox News to continue her job of saying incomprehensibly stupid stuff. So here she is talking about the Democratic Party.
I think we're going to be seeing a lot of these disputes in the Democratic Party base because they all hate one another. I mean, you have the Muslims and the Jews and the various exotic sexual groups and the black church ladies with the college queers. The only thing that keeps the Democratic base together is for them to keep focusing on, no, white men are the ones keeping you down. You must hate white men. It's the one thing they all have in common. So as it becomes increasingly clear that we are not going to get a wall or Trump fulfilling his immigration policies, I mean, the one thing we have to look forward to in the new country is just ginning up all of these hatreds in the Democratic base. The feminists can't even get along with the transgenders. I mean, in Los Angeles, you have Mexicans and blacks fighting like banshees. In New York, it's Puerto Ricans against the Dominicans. The idea that you can step forward and just say, oh, we're for unity and tolerance. No, I mean, like I say, this will be the one fun we'll have in the new country. The great accomplishment of the Women's March seems to be selling a lot of T-shirts.
Well, we'll see.
Well,
what
not
happens.
actually. We know in 2018 there was a record number of turnout of women who got elected to the Democratic Party. I know that's not usual
turned
for
out a lot of
Republicans
people.
since they have all white males who were elected, except for the one white female that was elected. But diversity is a part of the story.
White men are still running your party, whereas only about 20% of the Democratic voters are white men. But wow, look at the leadership. Look at all the Democrats running. Your nominee is probably going to be Beto O'Rourke. There are only a few women even running. White men run your party. If you have anybody to complain to, it's the Democratic Party.
Oh, come on. Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden are very diverse, Ann. That's not fair at all. But
Okay, so I love that because, wait a second, you were just complaining about how the Democrats are too diverse. They have Muslims and Jews and exotic sexual groups, and then the feminists and the transgenders. And so she goes through all these, they're too diverse. And then by the end, she's like, the too many white males. Wait, what? Which one is it? Too many white males are too diverse. See, it's just, they work backwards from their conclusion. Their conclusion is, fuck Democrats, fuck the left, we hate them, and so, I don't know, I'll just say whatever that's convenient to try to attack them. And I like how the fact either one of those things being an attack is incredibly stupid. And by the way, it goes to show you, this is hilarious because somebody like Ann Coulter, one of the key arguments against, these Democrats are so identity politics focused. So I'm going to do a segment about this where I talk endlessly about identity politics. Who's talking about identity? You're talking about identity. You brought it up. I didn't bring it up. Listen, you look at the polls. You know who the favorite is by far and away? Bernie Sanders. You know who the most popular politician in the country is? Bernie Sanders. Now, why is he the favorite among the Democratic base? Because he actually represents what we want to see implemented. He talks all the time about Medicare for all. He talks about free college. He talks about a living wage. I mean, he talks about the issues that we care deeply about. So he's the favorite. That's why almost all the polls show it, and the ones that don't show it usually show Biden as leading, and those polls are oversampling older people because they use landlines and oversampling registered Democrats. So listen, why is he number one? Is it because Bernie's out there all the time talking about identity politics nonstop? No. He's talking about the fucking issues. You know who's talking about identity politics? And you are. You just did. You did a whole segment about it. Yeah, the problem is Muslims and Jews and exotic sexual groups. What the fuck are you talking about? I think what she's trying to say is LGBTQ people when she says exotic sexual groups. And what they all have in common is they all hate white men, which is why there's a lot of white men in the leadership of the party and why their favorite for president is a white man. Hey, wait, maybe they don't hate white men. Hey, listen, I'm a white man. If I'm not mistaken, the demographics show a plurality of my audience are white men. We ain't the ones talking about identity politics. We're talking about Medicare for all and free college and a living wage and ending the wars and a Green New Deal and all these things. Listen, you know what I'm in favor of? What Jesse Jackson used to call a rainbow coalition. That's what I'm in favor of. I don't care, just like the Backstreet Boys. I don't care who you are. I don't care where you're from. I don't care what you did, as long as you love me. No, forget the love part. I don't care about your race, your religion, your background, your ethnicity. I don't care about any of that stuff. What I care about is policy. And if you're on the page with the canon of social democratic policies that would improve this country and make us catch up to the rest of the developed world, and in fact put us ahead of them if we actually really care and try to fix this stuff, if you're in favor of those policies, I will support you. Full stop. And I think the data shows that's where most people on the Democratic side are, regardless of race and any of that stuff. And since that's where we are, see, what Ann Coulter's trying to do here is switch the debate to territory where she'll win. So she's trying to be like, yeah, oh, identity politics obsessed fucking idiots on there. Let's talk about that endlessly and talk about how only you want to talk about identity politics. But you're the one talking about it. But she wants to drag the conversation into that realm so that she can straw man you effectively and say, see, that is all you care about. That's why we're talking about it. So the way to defeat this nonsense is to point out, hey, we're not obsessed with it. You're obsessed with it. And also, by the way, to be clear, one of the key elements of Donald Trump's campaign, yes, is white identity politics. So let's not forget that this idea that's like, oh, only the left plays identity politics. What do you think the fucking Southern strategy is, which is the strategy that has been used for decades on the right? The Southern strategy, let's appeal to white men in the South, to their sensibilities to try to get us elected. So that's what the Republican Party did. That's admitted that's what their strategy is. When you run on stuff like, nationwide stop and frisk, as Trump did, when you run on a very clear anti-immigrant platform, when you say stuff like do a total and complete shutdown of Muslims, all of this stuff is part and parcel of a Southern strategy approach, which is the core of it is white identity politics. Unlike Ann, I'm actually against identity politics across the board. She seems to think left-wing identity politics is stupid, dumb Muslims, Jews, and exotic sexual groups fighting amongst each other. Whereas Ann Coulter is a white identitarian. That's what she is. That's the group that she runs in. So ironically, she's a hell of a lot more guilty of this stuff than most on the left are. I'll grant you that some on the left are too obsessed with it, and that'll be the fight we have during the primary with the small and shrinking establishment Democrat, contingent, where they'll weaponize identity politics against the Bernie Sanders and the real Democratic base. But she's more obsessed with it than anybody, which is why she loves to talk about it in the context of going after the left for it, and inherent in a lot of her arguments are white identity politics. So it's just a really silly conversation, a really silly debate that we're having here. But what else would you expect? It's Ann Coulter. And yes, I wasn't going to get through the segment without saying it. Bitch, I don't write books.